The little birds, how sweet they sing, oh, let them joyous live, and do not seek to take their life, which you can never give. Don't kill the birds, the pretty birds that play among the trees, for earth would be a cheerless place if it were not for these. The little birds, how fond they play, do not disturb their sport, but let them warble forth their songs till winter cuts them short. Don't kill the birds, the happy birds that bless the field and grove, so innocent to look upon they claim our warmest love. The happy birds, the tuneful birds, how pleasant 'tis to see. No spot can be a cheerless place wherever their presence be. Folks, we're finishing up part 2 of our prison news series. What we're doing now is reading some of McGuffy's Readers, the 3rd eclectic edition. These are old textbooks used back nearly 200 years ago, since a little before the time of the Civil War and thereafter. They still continue to publish and sell about 20 to 30,000 a year, which is good for a book that's that old. It seems to really help people learn to read and encourages a little bit of good moral fiber. We're going to go ahead and read a couple stories now out of McGuffy's Readers. And this is, again, kind of the end of our series here before we go into book 4, 5, and 6. And then from then, we'll get back to our regular prison news. Next one is called John Carpenter. John Carpenter did not like to buy toys that somebody else had made. He liked the fun of making them himself. The thought that they were his own work really did delight him. Tom Austin, one of his playmates, thought a toy was worth nothing unless it cost a great deal of money. Tom never tried to make anything, but bought all his toys. "Come and look at my horse," he said one day. "It cost a whole $1. It's such a beauty. Come and see it." John was soon admiring his friend's horse. As he was examining it carefully to see how it was made, and then later he thought and thought and thought. Now the same evening he went and began to make one for himself. He went to the woodshed and picked out 2 pieces of wood, one for the head of his horse and the other for the body. It took him 2 or 3 days to shape this wood to his satisfaction. His father gave him a bit of red leather for a bridle and a few brass nails, and his mother found a bit of old fur with which he made a mane and a tail for his horse. But what about the wheels so he could pull it around? This puzzled him. At last he thought he would go to a turner's shop and see if he could not get some round pieces of wood which might be laying around the store there, the shop. He found a large number of such pieces among the shavings on the floor and asked permission if he could take a few of them. The turner asked him what he wanted them for, and he told him about his horse. "Oh, ha, ha, ha," said the man, laughing. "If you wish, hang on, I'll make some wheels for your horse. But mind you, when it's finished, you must bring it over here and let me see the horse." John promised to do so, and he soon ran home with the wheels the man made in his pocket. The next evening he went to the turner's shop with his horse all complete and was told that he was an ingenious little fellow. Proud of this compliment, he ran to his friend Tom. "Now then, Tom, here's my horse. Look." "Well, that's a funny horse," said Tom. "Where did you buy it?" "I didn't buy it," replied John. "I made it." "You made it yourself?" "Oh, well, it's a good horse for you to make, but it's not so good as mine. Mine cost $1, and yours didn't cost anything." "It was real fun to make, though," said John, and away he ran with his horse rolling after him. Do you want to know what became of John? Well, I'll tell you. He studied hard in school and was called the best scholar in class. When he left school, he went to work in a machine shop. He is now a master workman and will soon have a shop of his own, someday, very soon. Now, of course, the McGuffy readers required the students to read a poem between the stories and to work on their slate with a piece of chalk. It's a very short poem today called Persevere, and it reads, "The fisher who draws in his net soon won't have any fish to sell. The child who shuts up his book too soon won't learn any lessons well. If you would have your learning stay, be patient, don't learn too fast. The man who travels a mile each day may get around the world at last." The Contented Boy. Mr. Lennox one morning was riding all by himself. He got off from his horse to look at something on the roadside. The horse spooked and then ran away from him and broke away and ran off. Mr. Lennox ran after the horse, but soon found that he could not catch him. A little boy at work in a field near the road heard the horse. As soon as he saw him running from his master, the boy ran very quickly to the middle of the road and, catching the horse by the bridle, stopped it until Mr. Lennox could come up. Mr. Lennox said, "Thank you, my boy. You've caught my horse very nicely. What shall I give you for your trouble?" The boy, "I want nothing, sir." "You want nothing? So much the better for you. Few men can say as much, but what were you doing here in the field right now?" "I was rooting up weeds and tending the sheep that were feeding on turnips." Do you like your work?" "Yes, sir, very well, when the weather's good." "But would you not rather play?"
This not real hard work I'm doing. It's almost as good as play."
"Who set you to this work, boy?"
"My father, sir."
"What is your name?"
"Peter Hurdle, sir."
"How old are you?"
8 years old next June."
"How long have you been here?"
"Ever since 6 o'clock this morning."
"Are you not hungry?"
"Yes, sir, I am hungry, but I'll soon go to dinner."
"If you had a dime right now, what would you do with it?"
"I don't know, sir. I never had so much money."
"Have you no playthings?"
"Playthings? What are they?"
"Well, such thing as ninepins and marbles and tops, little wooden horses, things that boys play with."
"No, sir, I don't have anything like that. I got a football that I sometimes try to use in winter. I have a jumping rope, but it's broken."
"Do you want nothing else?"
I hardly have any time to play with what I have. I have to drive the cows and run on errands and to ride the horses to the fields. That's about as good a day as it gets for me. I kind of think of it like play."
"You could get apples and cakes if you had money, you know."
"I can have an apple at home. As for cakes, I don't really want them that much because every once in a while my mom makes me a pie. It tastes real good."
"Would you not like something like a knife to cut sticks like the other boys?"
"I have one. Here it is. My brother Tom gave it to me."
"Son, your shoes are full of holes. Don't you want a new pair?"
"I have a better pair, but I can just wear them on Sundays." "Oh, boy."
"But those shoes, they let the water in."
I don't mind that, sir."
"Your hat, it's all torn."
"I have a better one at home. I get to wear it on Sundays, too."
"What do you do? Let me ask you, son, what do you do when it rains out here in this field?"
"If it rains real hard, I'm in the field. I get under a tree for shelter."
"What do you do if you're hungry before it's time to go home?"
"Sometimes I eat a raw turnip."
"But if there is none?"
"Well, then I just have to go without. I work on and try not to think about it."
"Why, my little fellow, I'm glad to see that you are so content. Were you ever at school?"
"No, sir, but my father means to send me next winter if he can."
"You will want books then."
Yes, sir. Each boy has a spelling book, a reader, and a testament."
Mr. L. "Then I will give them to you. Tell your father so, that it's because you are an obliging, content little boy."
I will, sir. Thank you."
"Goodbye, Peter."
"Good morning, sir."
Next. James Selton was one of the most insolent boys in the village where he lived. He would rarely pass people in the street without being guilty of some sort of abuse. If a person were well dressed, he would cry out, "Dandy, dandy, look at you." If a person had clothes that were dirty or torn, he would throw stones at him and annoy him in every way. One afternoon, just as school was dismissed, a stranger passed through the village. His dress was plain and somewhat old, but he was neat and clean. Now he carried a cane in his hand, and on one end of the cane was a nice big bundle, and he wore a broad-brimmed hat. No sooner did James see the stranger than he winked to his playmates and said, "Now, come with me, let's watch some fun with this guy." He then silently went toward the stranger from behind, and knocking off his hat, ran away. The man turned and saw him, but James was out of hearing before he could speak. The stranger put on his hat and went on his way. Again did James approach him, but this time the man caught him by the arm and held him fast with an iron grip. However, He contented himself just with looking at James for a moment and staring at him in the face. Then he pushed James away. No sooner did the naughty boy find himself free again than he began to pelt the stranger with dirt and stones. But he was much frightened when the rowdy, as he foolishly called the man, was struck on the head by a brick and badly hurt. All the boys now ran away, and James sulked across the field to his home. As he drew near the house, James' sister, Caroline, came out to meet him, holding up a beautiful gold chain and some new books for him to see. She told James, just as fast as that little girl could talk, that their uncle, who had been away several years, had come home and was now in the house, that he had brought beautiful presents for the whole family. He had to leave his carriage at the tavern about a mile off. He walked all the way on foot so he could surprise his brother, their father, and everyone else. She said that while he was coming through the village, some wicked boys had thrown stones at him and hit him just over the eye, and that his mother had to bind up the wound and put some medicine on it.
"What makes you look so pale?"
asked his Carolyn, changing her tone. The guilty boy told her that nothing was the matter with him, and running into the house, he went upstairs into his chamber. Soon after, he heard his father calling him to come down. Trembling from head to foot, he obeyed. When he reached the parlor door, he stood facing the door to enter. His mother said,
"James, why do you not come in? You're not usually so bashful. See this beautiful watch your uncle has brought for you."
What a sense of shame did James now feel. Little Caroline seized his arm and pulled him into the room, but he hung down his head and covered his face with his hands. His uncle went up to him and, kindly taking away his hand, said, "James, will you not bid me welcome?" But quickly, starting back, he cried, "Brother, this is not your son. This is the boy who so shamefully insulted me on the street and ended up getting me this injury over my eye." With surprise and grief did the good father and mother learn about his behavior. His uncle was ready to forgive him and forget the injury, but his father would never permit James to have a gold watch or the beautiful books which his uncle had bought for him. In fact, the dad took his cane and gave James a good, sound lesson. The rest of the children were loaded with presents. James was obliged to content himself with seeing them happy. He never forgot this lesson so long as he lived. In fact, it cured him entirely of his low and insolent manners. Next.
"Mama,"
said Susie Dean one summer's morning,
"may I go to the woods and pick berries?"
"Yes," replied Mrs. Dean,
"But you must take Rover with you."
Susie brought her little basket, and her mother made a nice big lunch for her. She tied down the cover and fastened a tin cup to it. The little girl called Rover a great Newfoundland dog and gave him a tin pail to carry.
"If I bring it home full, Mama," she said, "won't you make some berry cakes for tea?"
Anyway, she tripped, singing as she went down the lane and across the pasture. When she got to the woods, she put her dinner basket down beside a tree and began to pick berries. Rover ran about chasing a squirrel or rabbit now and then, but he never strayed too far away from Susie. The tin pail was not a very small one. It was pretty big. By the time it was 2/3 full, Susie began to feel hungry and thought she would eat her lunch. Rover came and took his place at her side, and as she began to eat. Now, did she give him some of her lunch? No. She was in a selfish mood and did no such thing.
"There, Rover, run away. That's a good dog,"
she said, but Rover stood near her, watching her steadily with his clear brown eyes. The meat he wanted very much, just even a little taste, was soon eaten up, and all he got of the nice dinner was a small crust of gingerbread that Susie threw away. After dinner, Susie played a while by the brook. She threw sticks in the water, and Rover swam in and brought them back to her. Then she began to pick up her berries again. She did not enjoy the afternoon as she did the morning. The sunshine was as bright, the berries were sweet and plentiful, but she was neither tired nor hungry. But good, faithful Rover was hungry, and she had not given him even one piece of meat. She tried to forget about how selfish she had been, but she could not really do so, and quite early she started for home. When she was nearly out of the woods, a rustling in the underbrush over there attracted her attention.
I wonder if that's a bird or a